Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video. Game theory Into the Pit changes the FNAF timeline. 20 minutes and 13 seconds. Let's watch.
What's the point of this mask from Into the Pit? As you explore the house of our main character Oswald, this item can fall from the attic. But when during the game this happens is completely random. What's even stranger is that it's the only piece of Fazbear merchandise in the entire house. The game would have to believe that it's just a tradable item. And while yes, you
let me know whenever you want me to pause, by the way.
There are plenty of other items that show up way more reliably that can also be used for the game's one and only trade, making a luck-based item like this feel totally unnecessary, unless it's not really here to be a game mechanic. It's here to tell us something important, and I think I know what it is.
Sure, let's see.
So is this going to be the idea of the dad named the Freddy Bully?
Welcome to Game Theory, the show that, yes, is finally
I have no clue how that changes the timeline, though.
Yeah, I don't know. 2024, Into the Pit. A game based on the first Fazbear Fright story released as part of the big finale of FNAF's 10th anniversary. Or at least it was supposed to be. It ended up coming out a day early, and so instead, we got FNAF movie script pages on the final day. We should probably look into that. Regardless, it came out, and people loved this thing. Like the original story, we follow a 10-year-old.
I mean, most people liked it.
Who finds a time-traveling bull pit inside his local pizzeria, Jeff's Pizza. The bull pit takes him back to 1985, where he finds out that Jeff's used to be a Freddy Fazbear's. This thing's got all the stuff you'd expect: arcade machines, pizza, and a bunch of dead kids, along with the yellow rabbit mascot that's responsible. Yeah, this place is the real deal. The yellow rabbit tries to catch Oswald, but he escapes, only for the yellow creature to jump out and drag his dad back into the pit instead. The rabbit then re-emerges from the pit, only now he's posing as Oswald's father. And I don't just mean he's acting like his dad. I mean he physically takes on his appearance.
He's not even acting like his dad. He just looks like
it to everybody else.
Exactly.
Yellow rabbit except for Oswald. And so it's up to him to find a way to sneak past the rabbit, get out of the house, and back to Jeff's to find his dad. Eventually, Oswald does find him, frees him, and kills the yellow rabbit in the process. There are some changes here and there to make sure that it works as a game rather than a 40-page story, but overall, it's a really good experience. The time travel mechanics work great for in-game puzzles, and the pixel art style is gorgeous. However, like any FNAF game, we all know why we're really here: the lore. And that's where things get a little bit messy. This game is full of references from all across the FNAF universe. Fazbear Fright stories, the games, the graphic novels, the FNAF movie. Oh, and then there's this.
Wow, whoever GGY is has the top
Oh, that was so dumb,
game.
bro.
I mean,
okay, genuinely, there was so many references in this game. There's Kids That Play, Pizza Kit, What We Found, kind of, the Man in Room 1280, Sergio's Lucky Day, FNAF movie, Room for One More. There was a lot of references throughout the whole thing. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. And I find it weird that GGY is one of them.
What I will comment on is one of the reasons why I don't think that the lore in this game, or really anything at all pretty much in this game, is reliable is because of stuff like that. Just references all over the place. GGY, I literally, when I first heard about it, I'm like, I immediately started to try and like rework the timeline. And I'm like,
it doesn't work.
Or just like, did it affirm Gregbot or something like that? And you just, none of them work. So like, just like, it's a reference. So like, that's the huge burden you have, is what's a reference, what's not in this game.
Yeah. And also, there's references to stuff like What We Found, and if you believe Stitchline Games, then that doesn't really work, unless you believe Frights Games, but I don't think Frights Games works. But with What We Found, like, there's the reference with the oven thing, and I think, like one of the things that's, like, one of the messages in the school. But that doesn't really work with Into the Pit if you believe Stitchline games. So it's like,
Yeah.
there's some, since GGY is there, and that doesn't match with the timeline, it's obviously just a reference. So what I'm wondering is, are the other Fazbear Frights references, like Kids at Play, or Pizza Kit, or Man in Room 1280, and Sergio's Lucky Day and Room for One More. I mean, some of those are definitely Stitchline stories, like The Man in Room 1280 and Room for One More. But the other ones, the ones that we don't know for sure are Stitchline stories, doesn't mean that they are. But like with what we found, it can't be unless Stitchline Games isn't true, which you don't believe it, right? But
no, yeah. Well, keep in mind that the whole thing, it's a matter of, like, you have to discern everything. That's the reason why. How about you just discern nothing and just like they're all Easter eggs? Like, oh, this reference to GGY and this reference to the plane, that's just movie references. But this sign from Kids at Play, that means that this is in the game time. Like, no.
Or that Kids at Play is in the same timeline as Into the Pit.
No,
but like, I don't think it necessarily means. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I don't think it necessarily means that. I get it at first, but then when you like find more stuff like GGY, you're like, okay, this can't really line up, so it's probably just a reference. But then but that just begs the question of if those other ones are just references or if they're meant to connect them. And with Room for One More, I think that's definitely connected. Man in Room 1280 definitely is. Pizza Kit, Sergio's Lucky Day, they can be. And Kids at Play too.
Hold on a sec. So you think that the Room for One More reference in that room, you think that literally means that, well, I don't know, like, what's his name? What's the dude from that story?
Stanley?
That happened. Yeah,
No.
There?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
Exactly. So I'm saying that.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that, exactly. I think that Room for One More and The Man in Room 1280 are Stitchline stories, but also there's no saying for sure if these Easter eggs are meant to point us in that direction, because obviously Cam 1280 isn't literally about the Man in Room 1280, it's just a reference to that. So is it trying to connect them at all, or is it just meant to be an Easter egg just for fun?
I think most of them are all, like, pretty much all of them are Easter eggs.
Yeah.
I know some people like to discern, like, which are, which aren't. I'm just like, if you want to be consistent, like, I kind of just count them as all Easter eggs, because here's the thing, it's either all are, or either some are Easter eggs or all are. You can't have them all not be. That's pretty clear. So I just go with all because that's more consistent.
Yeah, I think that it's just weird to, like, you can use it as evidence if there's other evidence, but I feel like it's not, like, good evidence just because, like, you can't say for sure that, you can say for sure that not all of them are more than an Easter egg. So I feel like even the ones that are Stitchline stories, I feel like that's not what this is trying to tell us, if that makes sense.
Yes. So one final thing to comment though.
I think we're talking way too much about just this one topic. I don't know why, but yeah, you can go on though. Go on though.
I do. Yeah. My one last point: when Matt Pat saw the GGY in 1985, I'm sure he was like jumping. He was like doing backflips in his head because he's like, yeah, this proves Gregbot, guys. Like,
I don't know. I didn't watch the GG lives for Into the Pit. I probably should because I like them. They're entertaining. But I don't know if he actually did. Did he do that?
I don't think he. I didn't watch it either. That's just my hypothesis. Like,
yeah, I know. I know.
I'm sure he did.
I know that you didn't say that. I'm just like, saying, like, I'm not sure that, like, whether he did or not. But it would be funny if he did.
Right.
Anyway, want to continue now?
Yes.
All right. Cool.
If Gregory were a robot.
Yeah, he did say it.
What trolls you
What did I say?
So, yeah, as you can see, the lore of this game is a bit all over the place. It's hard to know if these are meant to be just Easter eggs or whether they're legitimate lore. And I'm sure we could all argue about this till the animatronic cows come home.
I think it depends what exactly. Like, the references to other stories,
different.
probably
Rather
Easter
than
eggs.
focusing on solving the lore of this game specifically, I wanted to try zooming out a little. Matt mentioned in a previous theory that the original 6 games are about the Afton family, their lives, their mistakes, their deaths, their resurrections, all of that stuff.
He's
But
correct.
since then,
Yeah.
we've begun being introduced to characters who, at some point or another, were impacted by the Afton family and their actions. Cassie in Ruin, her father in Help Wanted 2. This new era of FNAF is about the ripple effects caused by the Afton family. And I believe we're being
Cool.
shown exactly
sure.
that in Into the Pit. And it all comes
How?
down to a single collectible.
Oh, yeah.
The Freddy
Yeah.
mask. Yep, this one
gosh,
item is
what?
going to help us not only understand the themes Scott is presenting with modern FNAF, but also show us where it might be going in the future. How? Well, let's just pop in the second tape to find out.
What I find
Let's
funny.
do one fight.
What I find funny,
ahead.
what I find funny about us doing a reaction together is that you're a lot more negative on the game theories, and I'm just like, okay, I see your point. I disagree though, and you're just like, what? Why do you think that? And so like we have very contrasting
Yes.
like there's a really strong juxtaposition between the two of us, and like how we react to these to the theories. So I feel like that's
exactly. There's a reason.
I feel like it's really
there's a
funny
reason why-
content for that.
Well,
for that reason.
there's a reason why I don't react to them anymore because it's so hard to watch for me. But something I gotta say this.
Yeah.
I swear you know how Matt Pat would always go, before we go into the future, we're taking one final look into the past to see what they're trying to. That's what they're doing here. They just
I mean,
didn't say it.
to be fair, Into the Pit is a story that takes place like at the missing children incident. So I think it's fair to go back in time. But like,
Well,
I don't.
know, yeah. It's
But
just
I don't
funny.
see like. The thing is that it's kind of like a completely different story than the newer games because this is literally about the older games. Into the Pit is about the older games, you know, or like the beginning of the timeline, you know. So.
Yes.
I can see like the idea of like just I can see the idea of it being like if the Bonnie bully is the Bonnie bully. Sorry, if the Bonnie bully is Cassie's dad, then like having another guy be like another one of the bullies, like I can kind of see that like leap in logic,
Sure.
or not. It's not a huge leap in logic for like one bully to be a character and then another bully to also be a character. Because like if Foxy Foxy bully is Michael, so if Bonnie bully is is Cassie's dad, then I can see you being like, okay, so two of the bullies are important. Maybe the other two can also be, right? I can see that.
Well, yeah,
I can
so
see that idea. You know?
I can too. That kind of just leaves the Chica one then.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the idea of like. I can see the idea of Oswald's dad being the Freddy bully, and I don't really have a problem with that. I just don't think it's, like, completely necessary, but, like, maybe, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll see what they have to say about it.
Yeah, we'll see. As for, like, the Chica bully, though, I think that, like, I had one idea once that maybe the Chica bully could even be Jeremy. Like, but also... Okay, like, Jeremy Fitzgerald specifically, but, like... There's not really a point, but like the one idea that like I thought could point in that direction, but like it was a very weak piece of evidence, and I fully admit that, and I admitted it at the time too. But my idea was that in Prankster, the character is Jeremiah, right? And he's also called Jeremy. So it's not the same Jeremy as Jeremy Fitzgerald, but I thought like Jeremy, like maybe there's like meant to be a link between the two of them, just like in terms of like evidence for what happened to to Jeremy Fitzgerald, if that makes sense. And Jeremiah's clothes in the Prankster cover are kind of similar in color to the Chica bully, but that was literally it. And that's like a very weak sauce connection. It was just like a random thing that I noticed, and I was like, I mean, could be, but there's no reason to believe that, you know?
Right, yeah. I mean, that's interesting.
I think Jeremy Fitzgerald being one of the FNAF 4 bullies kind of works decently well because of hello, what the fuck was that sound?
No, you're right. It does.
I think it works.
Actually does. Especially, I think there's hints of that in the movie, like Jeremy and Mike being friends.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And also, there's the fact that Scott said once that he wants all of like the protagonists to have a reason to go to Freddy's and have a reason to stay. And we don't really know anything about Jeremy, so it's like, if he is a random guy, it is a little bit weird for him to want to stay, you know?
That is true.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, it's kind of like FNAF 4's game.
Continue.
Hold on, before we continue. It's kind of like FNAF 4's gameplay
yeah.
in that it's similar. It reflects FNAF 1, but also it reflecting FNAF 1 has nothing to do with it happening after FNAF 1 because that arrangement for the animatronics that happened before FNAF 1, like with the experiment rooms, right? So it's like there's meant to be a connection. There's an intentional connection between the two of them, but it doesn't necessarily. They're also like that for separate reasons. So what I'm trying to say is that the Freddy bully being Jeremy could also make sense because they both wear a Freddy mask, but they also wear Freddy masks for completely different reasons. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like it could be saying that they're the same guy, but also it's just meant to be like I don't want to say a parallel because like that word has been used in very different ways in the past few years for FNAF stuff, but it is kind of a parallel, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah. Okay, continue now.
Welcome back from the break. Thanks for sticking with us. Before we get too deep into the big meta stuff, we should probably go over the basics of this Freddy mask. During the game, you can explore multiple rooms in Oswald's house. One of the rooms is Oswald's attic, but on a random night, there's a chance that this Freddy mask
I thought it was just night 2. It happened on night 2 for me.
This stood out as a strange detail because 1, it's not mentioned in the original book, but 2, Oswald doesn't really know who Freddy is. If you collect the toy Freddy item, he calls Freddy this thing rather than by his name. And then if you collect this mask specifically, he asks,
I don't think I got the toy Freddy.
Anyone want to look like this thing? Not only does he not know who Freddy is, but he has no idea why anyone would want to look like
creepy,
him. This cannot be his mask, meaning it would have to belong to someone else in the house. Given their prominence in the game, my first thought was that it must belong to his dad. But when I realized that, there was just one thought running through my head. Is Oswald's dad Freddy Bro? The bully wearing the Freddy mask during
why do they call him Freddy Bro and Bonnie Bro? They're not brothers.
Thinking this either. Plenty of others online were quick to make this connection, but why? Why would the immediate assumption be that if Oswald's dad has a Freddy mask, then he must be this random character from FNAF 4? Well, because this isn't the first time this has happened. In Ruin, Cassie was able to collect a Bonnie mask, and combining that with other details she gave us about her dad, like the fact his favorite character was Bonnie, and that he collected Fazbear memorabilia from the 80s, it led us to believe that Cassie's dad was another one of these bullies, Bonnie Bro. However, a mask alone does not a Freddy Bro make. There would obviously need to be other connections, and so the first question I asked myself was, does the timeline match up? It sounds simple enough, but we're actually missing a number of details. The game doesn't tell us how old Oswald's dad is. All we know is that he's old enough to have a 10-year-old son. On the other side of things, while we don't have the exact age,
actually, it said that he was a few years older than Oswald was now in 1985.
So, well, yeah, but it's also just the fact, I'm pretty sure in the book, and I could be wrong, in the game, he mentions that he used to go... I know for a fact he says in the book that he used to go to Freddy's.
Yeah, he used to go to Freddy's.
But I don't know if that's the case in the game, and I'm pretty sure that's the case in Return to the Pit.
It kind of depends, like, how old the bullies are in FNAF 4, too. Because I think that Mike is Fritz, so he would probably have to be at least 18 by 1987. So he would have to be like at least 14 in.
I think he's like I think he's like 16 or something.
I think between 14 and 16 in during the bite in 1983. But also, if the bullies, I think would probably be around his age too. So if we say that they're like 14, then Oswald's dad would be 15. In 1985, if he was one of the bullies.
Which makes sense. That lines up fine.
Yeah, he says like a few years older than Oswald, and Oswald is 10, so that's kind of stretching it a little bit, but like it still works, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So like the timeline does match up decently well.
It seems pretty widely accepted that Michael and his bully friends are at least tweens when we see them in 1983.
I think older than that.
So, for Freddy Bro and Oswald's dad to be the same person, Into the Pit would need to take place far enough in the future from 1983 where he could grow up, have a kid, and have the kid turn 10 years old, while also not being so far into the future that he becomes too unreasonably old to look the way he does. Which leads me to my second problem. The game is very explicit that Oswald is traveling back to 1985, but it's never stated what year he starts in. In fact, Megacat Studios has been so careful not to reveal the date that details the calendar in the past giving us the month and year, the one in Oswald's house during the present only shows
2029.
the month. But there are a few details that slipped through.
I mean, that's kind of
No, I did this, bro. It's
2018 or
funny.
2029. I know what you mean. I know what you're gonna say. It's the calendar, right?
Well, it's either 2018 or 2029. You know what's funny? I literally made this observation within my video I made like 5 months ago, and then I get a notice from Libra that you had pointed it out to him, and I'm like, oh, bro, you're stealing my content.
What you mean the
like,
calendar?
The calendar, yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be either 2018 or 2029.
Yeah, I agree.
And either one has its problems.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have my own video that I'm going to work on that I already finished the script for that actually talks about exactly that.
Right, and it's the reason why I put it in my insurmountable timeline issues, because I'm just like, if this is part of the games, it throws everything off.
I agree, but I think there is an explanation for it. But again, I want you to finish the Into the Pit game and Return to the Pit before we actually talk to you about it. But
Yes. Sounds good.
I mean, you could like find out like from looking online or like hearing some of like my conversations with Libra from my last stream. But I'd say like just like keep reading, keep playing, and we'll let you know after you do. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Cracks, and I believe that they can help us figure out at least a
Point is there may be an explanation for it, but as for like the timing of the game, like when it takes place, I don't think it matters too much. It just kind of depends, like how old Oswald's dad is now, because we don't really know that either.
Range of dates for when this story takes place. During the second day, you have the opportunity to look around Oswald's school, and in the second classroom you can find several things hanging on the wall, like numbers, a sun clock, and a world map that seems a little broken. Maybe that's why there's no bears in Security Breach.
Before their extinction, bears were known to attack pizza delivery trucks.
Probably a theory for another day, but just below
Barely
that very
inhabitable.
confusing map
Barely
is the
habitable.
actually important detail, another calendar. Just like the one
Yep,
in our house that
exactly.
tells us the month with no year, but there's
We
one
predict
crucial
this video,
difference.
literally.
It has the days
Yeah.
crossed out, with the final marked date on the calendar being August 16th. Now, as a Brit, I typically read my calendars as the first day being a Monday and the last day being a Sunday. That would make August 16th a Friday in this game. However, FNAF takes place in the US, and
Yeah.
you guys use some weird calendars that start on a Sunday and end on a Saturday. I have...
How's that weird?
We do that in Canada too, but also I agree that it's weird because it's like because Sunday is
No, it's not.
Monday's the first day of the week. Sunday is a weekend day.
That's where I disagree. I think Sunday is the start of the week.
Well, it's part of the weekend though.
Yeah.
Not
Maybe
the
that's
week
just
start.
for religious.
It's not called the
Maybe
week
that's
start.
just for religious reasons.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Anyway, we continue.
No idea
Yeah,
how this
anyway.
makes sense to you. It's called the weekend for a reason. Anyway,
Exactly, we're
this
literally
system
predicting
means
this video.
that August 16th is a Thursday during the year the game takes place. There's only a few years after 1985 where August 16th has been on a Thursday. 1990.
I don't think you need to focus on what day it is in the game. You could just focus on what day the month starts.
And no, the day the month ends.
Or the month-
specifically.
or
The day
starts,
it
I mean-
starts and ends.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really... You can just look at the day it starts. It's not like August changes how many days it is. But...
Yes.
2001, 2007, 2012, and 2018. This immediately narrows down the search, but the range of dates still feels a little too large. We're currently spanning 3 whole decades, plus
Go
if
to
the
the
game took
future.
place sometime during those early dates, like 1990, it would be nearly impossible for Oswald's dad to have a 10-year-old son and be a teenage Freddy bro in 1983. So, the search continues. My gut instinct was to
What do you
look
mean
more
nearly
closely at the
impossible?
technology you use. Tech's
go with
come a
2018,
long
it's
way
not
in the
hard.
last 30 years, so it should be pretty easy to date. The piece of tech we have the most hands-on time with in this game is Oswald's dad's cell phone. Taking a look at it in your inventory, there's a comment from Oswald about how it's, quote, the saddest, most out-of-date model imaginable. And by today's standards, yeah, I definitely agree. So, I did some research into older mobile phones, and after looking through multiple sites with every make and model of phone since the 1980s, I found this, the Nokia 6600, which is almost identical to the phone Oswald uses throughout the game.
Oh,
This
wow.
phone was released in 2003, which means our most problematic timeline years of 1990 and 2001 are off the board. As for the other dates, I had to do a
Guys,
lot more digging than I anticipated.
It's so
Scott
easy.
admit-
Just, oh my gosh. It's not hard. You don't have to narrow this down and stretch this video out. It's 2018 based off of like it's that, or it's 2029 based off of what we know about other sources of Into the Pit. It's not that hard.
I think it just makes more sense to be to be 2018 or 2029, like just in terms of like the timing. Like I think that it makes less sense to be like 2012 isn't outlandish, but like I think 2018 just makes more sense. Especially if you believe, like, or especially if you take into account FNAF 3, if you believe Stitchline games,
Sure.
because it's 2023 theoretically, but also some people believe it's 2015. So like if you believe it's 2015, then Into the Pit has to be after 2015, meaning it has to be 2018 or 2029. So that's
Right.
like
So
what you got to take into
yeah.
account.
Exactly.
Especially,
so, I mean,
mostly
wherever
specifically, sorry, but most specifically because the Stitch Wraith is in it, and that only exists after FNAF 6.
I would argue that the Stitch Wraith. Are you talking about Stitch Wraith in the story or the game?
Into the Pit, the game.
Well, okay. I think that's just an Easter egg. So
okay, that's fair enough, I guess. Still, I would say that it's after FNAF 3, Into the Pit, just because of like I would still say that just because of like the way that the story goes in terms of like how it's part of like the agony conglomeration, like it's like the pit is where Eleanor stores her victims, and sure that obviously exists before FNAF 3, but it just makes more sense to be after FNAF 6 because that's when all the other Stitchline stories take place.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Megacat did a very good job keeping the world looking pretty ambiguous. I looked at washing machines, water fountains, blackboards, whiteboards, TVs, but all of them were either too generic to suggest a year, or the item is still being used in the modern day despite its age. Thankfully, my technology hunch came through once again, because during the game's final day, you get to go into the back of Jeff's pizza, and there you could find Jeff sitting down at his computer. Taking a look at the screen, I immediately noticed something. The grey taskbar and window design is identical to the design of Windows 95, but actually that isn't what I noticed. Despite coming out in 1995, people do still run Windows 95 today. No, what I noticed was the size of his monitors, specifically their aspect ratio. Aspect ratio basically refers to the ratio between the height and the width of an object or video.
I mean, I don't think you need to go this deep, but okay, it works.
Now is an aspect ratio of
to be
16
fair,
by
though,
9, meaning for every 9 pixels of height, there are 16.
Just one quick comment. To be fair, though, I had a very, I had an aspect ratio that looked like that, and my dad bought the monitor in 2012. I now have a better monitor because that one was ass, but it's like that. Those aspect ratios have existed for a pretty long time.
Yeah. I guess he's gonna say like when it
Most standard
existed.
TV shows and YouTube videos are made in this format, so naturally, most of our TVs and computer monitors are built to match that. But that wasn't always the case. Computer screens actually used to come in 2 different aspect ratios, 4:3 or 16:10. That was until 2008 when the modern 16:9 was introduced, and in 2010 they took over the market as the majority. So the question is, what size are Jeff's monitors? Of course, I whipped out the trusty pixel measurements, and I can confirm that Jeff's monitors are in fact modern 16:9 monitors, despite him still running Windows 95. Not sure you're gonna be getting the most out of those monitors, Jeff. I'm sure LTT would have some thoughts, but hey, you do you. That knocks 2007 out of the running, leaving us with 2012 and 2018, which for our purposes is actually more than enough. The fact the game...
So, something I also do want to mention, he continues to just like ignore 2029, which irritates me because that's also
I think it's fair if
technically.
I think it's fair, like from his perspective, to just not expect it to be that late. To be fair, but also
I mean, kind of.
But also, FNAF 3 being in 2023 is like really universally accepted, or at least it's not universally accepted, but because like the 2015 thing is still on the table. But like people like 2023 is a much more common belief. So I think that the fact that he's not, I think that he would at least note the Stitch Wraith. Like even if he thinks that it might just be an Easter egg and not the actual Stitch Wraith, like you would think that he would at least bring that up and say, okay, well it can't be before 2023 then, or at least it might not be before 2023. Like you think he would bring that up at the very least, you know?
He could. I mean, he could, but like, I don't. The question is he going to take into account as an actual lore reason or an Easter egg? And either way, like, I'm pretty sure. I think there's nothing that implies this game takes place before FNAF 3.
Yeah, not really.
So that's something that I'll mention. But anyway,
the only real thing is that the Stitch Wraith, or sorry, not the Stitch Wraith, the safe room in Jeff's is blocked off. But at the same time, it's not just a wall like it probably should be. Like it's
a door.
It's still a doorway. It's sealed,
Yes.
yeah, but it's still a doorway, not a wall. And it should be a
Exactly.
wall because it's supposed to like not be detected at all, right?
Exactly.
So it's probably after FNAF 3.
Yeah, I mean, then if that's the case, then the 2029 date works because you believe in FNAF 3 being 2023, correct?
I do not actually. I believe 2015.
So, bro, okay. Well,
what were you gonna say? Though? Go on.
Well, I mean, okay. If you believe FNAF 3 is in 2023, you have to go with 2029.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you believe
exactly.
That if you believe it's in 2015, then you can go with either one, but you probably want to go with 2018. Which would arguably work better for the timeline, even if your stitch line, even if you like have like to go through like so many hoops and whatever. But anyway,
yeah, I think it just makes it's just weird that he hasn't brought up 2029 because I'm pretty sure he does believe 2023 for FNAF 3. You know?
Exactly. So why are you not bringing up 2029?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Anyway.
Okay.
Can't take place in any of the years prior to 2012 means that from a timeline standpoint, it's definitely possible for Oswald's dad and Freddy Bro to be the same person. If he was a teenager in the 80s, by the 2010s, nearly 30 years have passed, so he'd definitely be old enough to have a kid of his own. However, even with that part of the timeline at least somewhat figured out, I realized I had a different problem. Sure, Oswald's dad could be the right age if he was a teenager in 1983, but that kind of relies on us assuming he's Freddy Bro to begin with, which isn't proof in and of itself. I needed more. I didn't just need the year of the game.
I thought the point was that we're trying to prove that he is Freddy Bully and that the timelines work.
Right,
So,
exactly. Like, what are you arguing here?
What's he saying, though? I don't get it.
I needed something that proved Oswald's dad was alive in the 80s. I looked through every inch of this game, but found nothing. So, I did the only thing I
Read
could.
the book?
I went back and reread the
Right?
book. I know. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Now,
There you
I've
go.
read these books countless times.
We know for a
but
fact he
each
was
time
alive
I
by
do,
then.
new details jump out to me. And with this new game fresh in my mind, I spotted this. Quote, Dad, how old were you in 1985? I was just a couple years older than you.
Bro, we're
All I could
literally
think about was how many
saying
quarters
this
I had to spend
video
at the
before it
arcade.
happens.
Jeff's Pizza, back before it was Jeff's Pizza, it was some kind of arcade, wasn't it? Yeah, it was, but it closed. At this point, we know that Jeff's Pizza was originally a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza back in 1985. So for Scott to remind us of that, as well as tell us that Oswald's dad spent all of his time in arcades like it during 1985, it's not a massive leap to assume that the two are connected. So not only was Oswald's dad alive during 1985, but he spent a lot of time at Freddy's as well. But it gets better, because even though Oswald's dad was playing coy about his age, a couple of years is definitely something we can work with. Fun fact, there have actually been studies on what people mean when they say a couple of years. Traditionally, the word couple just meant two, but now it can basically mean anything from 2 to 8, although it tends to average out at around 3 to 4 years.
Usually
If that's the
I
case, then
say
with
it as
Oswald
like
being
2.
10
but-
during the story,
I just
Oswald's
say it
dad
as, like,
would have been
a
roughly
couple, like-
13 to 14 during 1985, making him at least 40 for the earliest date we found, 2012. That is more than reasonable considering he has a 10-year-old son,
looks
but
older than
does that
40,
line
bro.
up with the FNAF 4 bullies? Well, if Oswald's dad was 13 or 14 in 1985, that would mean that in 1983, 2 years earlier, he would have been 11 or 12. Now, we don't know the ages of Michael and his friends here, but we can make a pretty good educated guess. The average height of an 11 to 12-year-old boy is between
Are we gonna do
56
pixel measurements
and
again?
59 inches. And during the scene, we see them walk past a handful of dining tables, which usually measure in at around 30 inches tall. If you take a look, you'll see that the bullies are just shy of double the table's height, putting their height smack dab in the middle of the 56 to 59 average. Did did we just find the ages of the FNAF 4 bullies?
No,
That
not
was
necessarily.
Not the intention of this
you did
episode.
not.
And, you
Bro,
know, it's FNAF,
how can
so
you even
I'm not
measure
gonna
that
hold on to it
properly?
too tightly, but it's
I mean, it's
pause.
pixel measurements.
They for two things. They're literally different heights. First of all, like you can tell.
Yeah.
Also, how are you going to measure that properly, especially when the Bonnie mask and the Foxy mask have ears that go go above their heads. Even the Freddy mask does. Like, they're all different heights, so I don't even know what he's trying to argue here.
I mean, yeah, I'm 6 feet tall. My best friend's like 5'7", so, and two of my other best friends are like 5'10". Like, you can really range heights like when you're a teenager. So like, it doesn't really matter how tall they are. And even if it did matter, this is still pixel measurements. It doesn't have to be 1-to-1 in terms of how tall they are.
Keep in mind that my best friend's mom is less than 5 feet, so like I don't think.
Well, yeah, but girls are normally shorter.
48. Okay, bro. No, but she's like 48, so like it doesn't really work.
Yeah, I mean,
like there's.
It's kind of different because like these are all dudes, but like I get your point though. Like heights can like range completely differently depending on like even if you're like really old.
Exactly. Right, exactly. So like I'm not gonna argue that means that these guys are what 12, 13.
Yeah.
Whatever he's arguing.
Yeah, it doesn't. I wouldn't say that their heights really matters that much.
Yes. All right.
I'll rewind a little bit.
Did we just find the ages of the FNAF 4 bullies? Huh, that was not the intention of this episode. And, you know, it's FNAF, so I'm not going to hold on to it too tightly, but it's definitely interesting to think about. And for our purposes today, it does mean that Oswald's dad would have been the perfect age in 1983. Combining that with his frequenting of Freddy's locations and owning the same mask, he's looking like a pretty good candidate for the identity of the Freddy bro. It's more than just the timeline stuff too. A detail I always thought was odd was Oswald's affinity for drawing, quote, mechanical animals. He does this at the start of both the game and the book, and as we get more details, it turns out he's drawing characters like Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. But this is before he's even gone to Freddy's, and as I've already mentioned, at that point, Oswald doesn't know who these characters are. What's even weirder is these drawings don't play any part in the story whatsoever, so why are we being shown this?
No, in the
start of a story.
In the story, he also doesn't know.
Is where you establish.
Oh, that's right. He does know in return, though.
Their likes, dislikes, hopes, dreams.
Does he know?
He's drawing them at least.
Well, yeah, he's drawing them in the game, in the game and the book too.
So he's drawing them in all three.
Hold up, I'm gonna.
But he doesn't. Does he not know in any timeline? It feels like. Yeah, that's right. Is he just like drawing from his subconscious?
Where in Return to the Pit does he... Oh yeah, you're pretty good at drawing, and lately you've gotten into sketching these animal characters that are kind of like mascots. One's a bear, one's a bird, one's a rabbit. They play in a band, yeah, okay, super cheesy, a little childish, but whatever. So he doesn't know what he's drawing, he's just drawing them for fun.
Right.
I think the point of that is like just that the pit is reaching out to him. That's kind of the whole point of that. Like how the location reached out to Greg, or Devin, like they kind of like just felt drawn to it. And in Return to the Pit, he also has nightmares about the ball pit before ever going to it. So it's like the pit is reaching out to him. That's the point.
Like any part in the story whatsoever. So why are we being shown this? Because the start of a story is where you establish who your character is. Their likes, dislikes, hopes, dreams, and their relationships. In this case, we're being shown that before this story about a Freddy Fazbear's even starts, this character, this family, has a connection to the Fazbear franchise.
Not really.
A connection Oswald may not fully understand, but one that his dad
I think that's a stretch.
Does. But why does this matter? What does this fundamentally change for us and our understanding of this franchise? Well, it's once again...
I mean, he's kind of just like saying, oh yeah, this is how writing styles work, but also this is the main character and his relationship, sure, but like, his relationship with his dad is important, but his dad's relationship with Freddy's isn't important to like him as a character yet. At least not yet.
That's literally like saying, like, my brother's favorite food is pizza, and my favorite food is
not pizza.
Like,
so, and then
like chocolate, but it's
and then
okay.
I draw a picture with pizza. I draw a picture of pizza. That means my brother likes pizza. Like it's not really a very good connection at all.
It's
showing us that
very
this
weak.
modern era of FNAF is widening our view on the world and the characters we look at, focusing on the knock-on effects of the Afton family and how the part these other characters played all led to them changing their ways. Cassie's dad being Bonnie Bro in Ruin was the first instance of this. Cassie tells us that he had a technician's Faz wrench, hinting that after the bite of 83, he grew up and became a technician so that he could stop any malfunction like the one he witnessed from ever happening again. Oswald's dad being Freddy Bro does the same thing. We learn that Oswald's dad used to work at the local mill before it shut down. Again, in true Scott fashion, he kept what type of mill this was vague in the story. I always imagined
mill.
it was just your typical steel or wood mill, but in the game, we actually get to visit this mill. Or more accurately, you get to visit the trash heap outside the mill. Although, this isn't any ordinary trash. I mean, some of it is, but next to the classic black bags, you can see a few recognizable Fazbear characters. The most obvious ones
That's a
are Trash and the Gang
reference.
from FNAF 6. Because, of course, the characters made from literal trash are hiding out in a dumpster. But besides them, you can also find things like a toy Bonnie doll, a Bonnie mask, a Freddy head, and a couple of animatronic hands and feet. And these things do belong to the mill as well, because Oswald says that they've been sitting there ever since the factory closed down. This mill isn't just your typical mill. They were making parts for Fazbear Entertainment. Oswald's dad worked at this factory, so it seems like he grew up and started working at the local factory that made Fazbear parts to make sure that...
I don't think so. Because Jeff's isn't Freddy's anymore, and Freddy's is like probably shut down by this point. For now at least. Like obviously it reemerges after like FNAF 6, but like
I do find it interesting. I do find it interesting how he's like saying stuff like these guys have been sitting out in the trash. The question is, he does the same thing with GGY. So like again, is it an Easter egg or is it not? Like I really just think that it's an Easter egg, guys.
It
like,
might just be that the mill also has just like the dump at it, you know, because like that's where all the garbage is, and there's like a bunch of different stuff there that's like also not Fazbear stuff. So like I don't think the Fazbear stuff has anything to do with the mill. And I don't remember if it was mentioned in the actual Into the Bit story. But it's mentioned that there's a mill, obviously, and then He Told Me Everything, they also mention a mill, which kind of seems like it probably connects the two, and it's like when the mill still is open, and there it's a steel mill, so I think it's most likely meant to be the same mill, and that it's a steel mill and Into the Pit too.
Right, but yeah, you're right. It's just like, again, I think that he's drawing way too much of a connection between Trash and the Gang and this mill relating to like Freddy's or the you know, his dad being Freddy Bully. I think that is a stretch, especially considering like if we really wanted to connect that to the Trash and the Gang, it's just like, are we really gonna think that when FFPS comes along, Henry's like, I'm gonna go to this mill really, really close to Jeff's Pizza, which hasn't been a Freddy's for so long, and I'm gonna take these guys out of the trash. Like, really, like, especially if they've been sitting there, they would probably smell like ass. So,
I mean,
like,
I still think FNAF 6 is before the Into the Pit, though. So this is probably the remains of FNAF 6 rather than
it could
like
be
what will be.
but I mean, I mean that is possible, but that's assuming that they weren't burned down in the fire.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But it also could be like that in the canon route, they were never actually bought, so they just ended up being scrapped and thrown there. Or again,
that is possible.
Or like you said, they could have just not been that burned.
Right.
I mean, the location itself isn't even that burned, so maybe the stuff in it wasn't either. Because it was mostly the chambers that were burned down, like where the animatronics were. So the actual restaurant might have been like still burned a little bit, but probably mostly intact, like it was, like we see in FNAF 6 or in Security Breach.
Right. Right. Okay, that's fair.
I was gonna say something else, but I forgot what it was. Something to do with Trash and the Gang. I don't know. I think that it just makes sense. Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. He's talking about those FNAF 6 things and not acknowledging that FNAF 6 is before this story, which based on his belief of it being in 2023, most likely, at least I think he believes that, then it's weird that he's not saying that the story has to be later.
Well, I mean, he hasn't explicitly said that, so like there's there's room for him to not believe that.
I mean,
but
yeah,
do think
I
you're
agree.
right.
I agree, but like I don't think he ever said that he didn't believe that, and I find it weird that he's not mentioning that at all. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna continue now.
All right.
that they were properly
Yeah.
inspected, tested, and approved before being sent out. That way, no kid would ever suffer the same fate as Michael's brother due to a faulty part. For years, Michael, the Foxy Bro, was the only one of the bullies to truly try to atone for the mistake he made. He wasn't able to help his brother, but he tried to put his sister back together. And when he learned the truth about his dad from her, he went on a mission to finish him.
What the?
But
What?
for almost a decade,
What is he implying there by putting? Okay, never mind. You're right. He does.
one of the bullies to truly try to atone for the mistake he made. He wasn't able to help his brother, but
Oh,
he tried
okay,
to
never
put
mind.
his sister back
Forget I
together.
said anything.
And when
Okay.
he learned the truth about his dad from her, he went on a mission to finish him as well. But for almost a decade, the other three bullies basically got away with it. They just disappeared into the back of people's minds, never to be seen or heard from again. Now, here they are, showing up one by one and revealing to us that these events did change them. That just like Michael, they too are trying to atone for what they did back in 1983. And this theory works regardless of whether you think
I mean,
it's the bit
maybe.
in the books are 100% canon and Oswald's dad is literally Freddy Bro,
Speculation
or
at
whether you
best.
believe he's just a parallel for a grown-up Freddy Bro. The theme is still the same. This era of FNAF is about the ripple effects of the Aftons and the atonement of the FNAF 4 bullies. Scott is trying to wrap up loose ends that were left dangling for years. He's giving us a little more insight into characters that up until now have basically been one-dimensional. Both Bonnie Bro and Freddy Bro were just bullies. Mean kids that thought it would be funny to shove Mike's little brother into the mouth of an animatronic he was terrified of. But now we're being shown that they didn't stay those one-note cruel bullies after that. That just like Michael, they were haunted by what they did and were doing whatever they could to make up for it. We see during the end of the game that Oswald's dad deeply cares about his son. He's no longer the awful bully. He's kind and loving, just wanting to provide for his family. And before the factory shut down, he was trying to stop the same horrifying incident happening again, just like Bonnie Bro did as a technician and just like Foxy Bro did when he put an end to dear old dad. So theorists, when the next FNAF game does come out, one that isn't a prequel anyway, make sure you keep an eye out for a Chica mask. I have a feeling whoever it belongs
Okay.
to might have an important story to tell. But hey, that's
Have we got a peachy deal for you?
Okay, good enough.
Wow.
I
Two
okay.
things.
I
Go
okay.
ahead.
I get it. I just don't think it's necessary, and also I still think it's possible that Freddy Bully is just Jeremy Fitzgerald. Like I think that works fine too. Like it's not necessarily like confirmed, obviously, but like I can see that working fine. So, him being the Oswald's dad being the Freddy Bully, sure that works. But I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it changes very much. You know.
Yeah. So there are two things I have to say. First, the title "Into the Pit" changes the FNAF timeline. How? You did
Not
not
really.
prove that at all. You didn't. And number two, this whole video is what you could. It's just a dragged out version of what you could literally just say. Like you could say this in like 5 minutes.
This could have been a mini theory, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you literally could have like put this as a YouTube short. I'm serious. You like dragged
Yeah,
this out.
maybe.
All this was dragged out for things that you didn't really need to. Like you know what I'm saying, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like
I get it. Yeah.
all the stuff that we kind of like a lot of it is narrative of like, oh, the ripple effects of of the Afton family to these guys. Like if they really are there, okay, cool, but like that's not really proving your claim that it changes the timeline. It doesn't change it at all.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's all
Yeah.
I will say.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's fair.
It's one of the better ones. I'll say that.
I mean, it's not really. I wouldn't say it's a good theory, but like, I still get the point he's making. It's like, it's not a bad theory. It's just a little dragged out and a little unnecessary, but like still possible. I think mini theory could have
Sure.
worked way better. Like maybe just like throw
Yes.
this in. Maybe do like one of those 3 FNAF theories in one video thing, like
Oh,
3 mini FNAF theories.
yeah.
Remember when he used to do? Remember when MapPat used to do that? Like maybe you could have
Yeah, I
done one of
missed
those. Or waited for like a bigger FNAF theory and then just thrown this in there like as like a side note or something.
That is true. Yeah.
I feel like that just would have worked better.
I think that would have been better.
It didn't need to be
I
like
agree.
its own video, but
Agreed.
yeah, overall it wasn't bad. It just wasn't like the best either. Also, it was 5 months ago, so we're very late to this. But you know, why not just react to
true.
it now
I'm
that
late.
we know Into the Pit a little bit better, or like a little bit more of like the details.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
late to all sorts of theories that I'm
Yeah.
gonna try and catch up on and make my commentary on pretty soon.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna try to get my Return to the Pit video done soon too.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's all there is to talk about. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and Sandwich Man, thank you for joining me.
No problem.
And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.